I'm Professor Scott Allard with the Evans School. And policy matters because there's nothing more important than exercising your right to vote. Voting is one of the most common and important ways we participate in civil society and the political process. Many of us see this as our civic duty. And in Washington State, we vote by mail and have been voting fully by mail for more than a decade. It's an essential part of how we determine who leads our state and communities, how we fund our schools, and how we set priorities for policymakers. Now, to maintain a secure and strong vote by mail system, it's essential that county election offices verify the identity of each ballot received, linking it to its correct registered voter. And in Washington State, as is the case in other states, it's the voter's signature on the ballot envelope that's used to verify identity. We gather signatures at the point of voter registration, and county election offices use sophisticated digital signature matching techniques to ensure voter identity. But signature verification requires us to remember to sign our ballot and to sign it in a manner that matches our registration signature on file. And each year, about 1% of all voters forget to sign their ballots or return an envelope with a signature that doesn't quite match what's on file. In these cases, the voter receives an invitation to cure or fix their ballot, typically within a few days of casting that ballot. And roughly 60% of voters in Washington who receive a cure notice follow up and correct their ballot signature in the allotted time. Well, so what's the problem? We do a great job as voters. Washington State's vote by mail system is a national leader. County election offices across the state are recognized for the excellence of their work. Well, first, several thousand ballots ultimately aren't cured by voters, and several thousand more are received late and aren't counted at all. And we want to ensure that voters who are trying to exercise their civic duty have the best chance of having their ballots counted. And also, we can find examples everywhere of how every single vote counts. It's at this point, after a ballot has been cast, where I think public policy, research, and our core values as a society really come in. In 2022, the Evans School started working with the Washington Legislature and the Secretary of State's office to examine the voter experience and find ways to improve that experience. In effect, what can we learn from data and from voters to reduce signature challenges and to help voters to remember to get their ballots in on time? We first looked at the data, and several important trends showed up. Younger voters are much more likely than older voters to leave a ballot envelope unsigned or to return a ballot with a mismatched signature. Younger voters also are less likely to cure their ballots. Similarly, voters of color are much more likely to have ballots challenged or rejected than non-Hispanic white voters. Importantly, we didn't see much evidence that rural voters were more or less likely to have their ballots challenged or rejected than urban voters. So we started to consider why we might see these patterns. We spoke to election officials, we spoke to voters, and a few things stood out. Many voters are unaware that their signature is matched to what is on their voter registration form. And that signature is usually what's on our driver's license, because most of us in Washington register to vote at the Department of Licensing. This means our ballots may get flagged if we use a less formal signature or a nickname or a shortened name. And in today's world, we realize that most of us really don't sign our name pen to paper as often as we might have used to. We're using our fingers on touchscreens to sign our names all the time. We also found that ballot envelopes and voter materials could be improved to help reduce signature issues on ballots. For example, not all materials may be translated in a voter's preferred language. The ballot envelopes themselves also vary across the state. So there's room to use human-centered design principles to improve how those envelopes might help remind voters to sign their ballot envelopes. The last issue we encountered was related to late ballots, which is the most common reason ballots are not counted in Washington State. And here we found that primary elections and off-year general elections saw the highest numbers of ballots returned late compared to presidential election years. Well, and that makes sense. At some level, people vote with more intensity in presidential years. It also suggests there's greater opportunity to remind voters about election day deadlines in those less salient election periods. We also found that some ballots are placed in the mail too close to election day to be postmarked on time, which suggests we should be reminding voters of upcoming deadlines more regularly. Three key takeaways seem to emerge from our research. Common sense tips that will help us all exercise our civic duty. First, sign your ballot. And second, when you sign your ballot, sign your driver's license signature. And finally, get your ballot in early and make sure you follow it on votewa.gov. In the end, efforts to improve the voter experience give us more confidence in our election system. And as importantly, improving the voter experience ensures that our voices shape the decisions that matter most to our communities and our families. Thanks for watching. We'll see you at the ballot box.